Today, this is what we're going to be doing in our sketchbooks. We're going to learn how to do the colors of the color wheel in separated families. So we have our primary colors, we have our secondary colors, and we have our 6 tertiary colors. This is what we're going to spend our class time doing. And if you don't finish it during class time, then I'm going to ask that you finish it during lunchtime today and make sure that you have this completed. So let's get our pencil and our ruler. And we're going to put a title on this page. So this is the element of art color. Okay, so we know what we're doing here. We're going to start off with our primary colors. Okay, and let me just show you real quick again. So you can see I've left room to identify each of the color boxes as well as write the color abbreviated names underneath them for my tertiary colors. So you want to leave some spacing, okay? To make life easy, instead of using our ruler for measuring, I'm just going to use it as a template. So take a look how I'm going to do this. I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to draw on top, I'm going to draw on the bottom, giving me 2 horizontal lines. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so you can see. 2 horizontal lines. I'm then going to use the width of my ruler like this vertically to give me vertical lines so I can divide this into 3 boxes. And the leftover lines I will erase. So I have 3 boxes that I can use for my primary colors, and I just clean up the extra lines with my eraser. Okay, so that's what I have for primary colors. So the next one are our secondary colors. Okay, secondary colors, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give myself 2 horizontal lines. This time I have kind of a guide up on top about how to start and stop, kind of like, or where, and then use my ruler vertically to give myself my 3 boxes, because there are 3 secondary colors, right? We're going to put yellow, red, blue here. We're going to put violet, green, and orange here. Okay, and then we're going to do the tertiary colors. All right. For these, we're going to do 2 sets of 3 boxes because there are 6 tertiary colors. So instead of trying to fit 6 boxes across our page, we're going to do the sets of 3, 2 sets of 3. So again, leaving space between them so we can write in those abbreviated names of the colors. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and erase those. So I'll give you some time to get that finished. Should look like this when you're finished. We're going to put our red orange, our yellow orange, our yellow green, our blue green, our blue violet, and our red violet. Okay, so we have everything labeled, so that way if we are slower at doing this and we have to do this on our own time, you know what colors go where. So I have these paints, and they are covered in plastic wrap here, press and seal plastic wrap. I only need the 3 colors today. I don't need black and white today, so I can set that aside. I'm going to carefully open these. Make sure that if they've spilled that you're very careful in opening them. Okay, hold on to this plastic wrap. You want to use it to recover them at the end of class, so that way they're staying as moist as they can. If the paint stinks, if it has an odor to it, don't worry about it. Paint does go bad, but it's not going to affect your painting. It's just going to be stinky, but you're not eating it, so it should be fine. There are some painting tricks that I'm going to share with you, okay, to make your life easier and keeping the paint under control and, you know, on the page and in the lines and everything that we need to do. So you have a piece of tin foil. This is going to be your palette that we will mix paint on. It is folded like this. Just keep it folded. Don't open it up completely. You're only going to use a small section of it. We want to recycle this as we go. So just keep it folded. You're going to use just a small section of this. At the end of this, we will let this paint dry on the tin foil and we'll reuse the tin foil as we go into next week. Okay. If when your tin foil is completely covered and not usable any longer, then you'll need to get another piece of tin foil from your home or a paper plate or something that you can use as a palette. But try to use as much space of this as you can and recycle it as you can so you don't have to use too much from your own home. So there's my tin foil. That's my palette. I have brushes, paint brushes, one large, one small, and one medium. I'm going to use the medium one, because that's the most appropriate size for the size that we're painting. The large one will be too large and too hard to stay within the lines once it has paint. Remember, when you fill a paintbrush with paint, it doubles in size when you press the weight of the paintbrush plus the paint. It's going to ooze out from the sides of the paintbrush, so this will be too large and too hard to stay within the lines, so we don't want to do that. So move that to the side. I don't need the tiny one. The tiny one will take forever to finish the job. So the most appropriate size is this medium size paintbrush that I've given you. Okay. Notice that the paintbrushes also should be square, because then it works best for the shape that we're painting, right? It's got nice square 90-degree corners that I can use with my square paintbrush. You can see that with our primary colors, we're going to need to use our yellow, our red, and our blue. I purposely set it up with yellow first, then red, then blue, because yellow is our lightest color. Then our next color will be red because it's lighter than blue, and then we will end with the darkest color. We paint light to dark because that way if I make a mistake going out of bounds with the yellow, the red can color it. And if I go out of bounds with the red, the blue can color it, right? Makes sense? So let's go ahead and get started. I don't need my tin foil for right now. Set that aside. I need my yellow paint. Carefully open your yellow paint so that way if it drips or has crumbs come off of it, it's not getting on your sketchbook. Just open it to the side there. It's been sitting for a while, so I am going to mix it over to the side here. I'm mixing it. Go ahead and mix that up. Make sure it's nice and liquidy and mixed up. Now, I can't paint with this paintbrush now because look, it's got paint up on the handle. So I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to drag it on the side, get all that paint off of my paintbrush so I don't waste any. Your job throughout this is to save as much as you can because this is the paint that you have for the entire process. So you want to make sure you have enough paint and you don't have to go to school for a refill. So get as much off of there. Then rinse your brush in your water. Rinse it real good. Get it rinsed off real good. Get all that yellow out of the brush. Check it on your paper towel. Make sure that your paper towel, when you wipe it, is not a color. If it is a color, if you see yellow, get some more rinse and then wipe it. Should rinse clear, okay? Get it nice and dry. You don't want any dripping brushes. When you take the paint from the container to your sketchbook, take a look at how I put the paint on my brush, how I dip my brush in. Just that much. Do not dip the whole brush in because the paint grows up the brush into the handle if you put too much. So just the portion that you see there, just the first tip part of the bristles are covered. Now, this is my secret of how I paint a shape. I first outline that shape. So turn your brush, outline. Do the outline first. Do the outline first. Grab some more paint if you need. Do the outline first. And then watch. When I have the outline done, look how easy it is for me to paint the middle. Watch. All I have to do is fill in the middle and smooth out all my paint and make it look nice and even. So there shouldn't be any raised rails of paint or globs of paint. Make sure it's all nice and smooth and even coverage, no white peek throughs, complete coverage. opaque coverage, which means no white paper showing through, and no uneven surface. The next color we have is red. So I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to open up red. Again, making sure that my brush is very clean before I go to the red. I do not want to contaminate the red. If I put yellow in my red is no longer red, and then the whole entire time I need to use red, my red is a problem, right? So make sure that you are not contaminating your colors. Clean off your brush completely. Make sure there's no yellow in that brush. Mix the color again. It's been sitting, so we need to mix it. Make sure it's all nice and liquidy and pretty. It doesn't have any lumps in it. Wipe your brush off. Do not rinse it yet. Make sure all the globs of paint are saved. We don't want to waste any. Don't want to waste any paint. We have to save as much as we can so we don't have to get a refill from school. And then rinse your brush really good. Rinse it real good. Get it nice and cleaned off. And then use your paper towel to dry your brush. We don't want a wet dripping brush. Dry your brush. And then just like I did before, just the top part of the bristles. So not the whole brush, just the top part like you see there with paint. And then do the outline. If you've got a big glob of paint on there, make sure you're smoothing that out so you don't have different levels of paint. Use your paper towel to check to see if you have any color left in that wet brush. And if it's clean and clear, you're good to go. Grab your blue. The blue one has a lot of pigment in it, so be very careful with the blue. Mix up your blue. You'll notice the blue is a little bit more gummy, kind of like thicker. And wipe your brush completely off. Don't waste any paint into the water. That's just wasting it. So get it all wiped off before you rinse. Okay. Go ahead and rinse that brush so it's nice and clean to paint with. You're going to get some blue. Again, very, very little blue on the tip of my brush here because it's going to grow up the brush and we don't want it to go up the handle onto my hand and make a mess. I want to control how much paint I'm adding to my brush because as I paint with it, I want the most control I can have as I try to stay within this box. Then the outline, super important to do first. Grab a little bit more if you need. Once you've done your outline, then you can go with your paint in the middle and just close the gap. This is what it should look like when you're done. First color we're going to make is orange. We're going to start from the right to the left this time. So I'm going to get my colors that I'm going to need for orange. That's going to be red and yellow. Okay, I'm not going to pick up this and pour it. No, sir. If I do that, I'm going to get too much. I don't want a lot. I'm only painting little squares. So I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to scoop it like I'm scooping with a spoon. And I'm going to give myself 1, 2, 3 dollops. So like I scooped it and you can see I made a little teeny puddle. This is like the size of a nickel. Okay, just a teeny puddle. And I'm going to roll my brush. See how I roll my brush? Watch. Take my brush and I roll it to squeeze all the yellow out before I go rinse it. So I'm going to rinse it because I need to get red, but I don't want to put my yellow, right? I don't want to contaminate my red, so I can't put my yellow brush in my red. So I wash it out real good. Check it on your paper towel. Is your paper towel clean? Yes, that's good. So grab just a little red. Red is a lot stronger than yellow, so just a little red. Look, just a little red. Not even a scoop. It's just as much red as I grabbed for the painting of the red square. And I'm going to mix that in my yellow. And I'm going to mix it completely so all the swirl goes away. And this is just orange. Now what happens if it's too red-orange? Then you're gonna have to clean your brush and get more yellow. If it's too yellow-orange, then you're gonna need to clean your brush and get more red. Sometimes on the tin foil, it's hard to see what color this looks like. So it's sometimes best if you have a scrap paper, or you can use your paper towel. I use like a little scrap paper. See, I have this little scrap notebook, and I just test it out a little bit and say, oh yeah, that looks pretty good for orange. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this orange. I'm gonna squeegee what I mean by squeegee is I like roll my brush and get all the paint out so it's not like all over the place. Get rid of the paint that's in my brush so it's not dripping or thick. And then I'm gonna take a little bit and I'm gonna use that to paint my square. And my square is the right-hand square labeled with the O underneath it for orange. And again, I'm gonna do my outline. Take a little bit more paint. Orange that I have on my tin foil. See the leftover orange I have here? I'm gonna need later for my red orange and my yellow orange. So don't do anything with that. Keep that. Don't get it contaminated with the next group of colors we're going to make. The next color is green. I need yellow and blue for green. Yellow and blue for green. We're gonna do 3 scoops of yellow. So just with your brush like it's a spoon, scoop it and put it on here. 1, 2, 3, okay? Roll your brush to get all that yellow out of it. Roll your brush, get all the yellow out of your brush, and then rinse it. Rinse it real good because you don't want to get yellow in your blue because you'll make your blue contaminated. Okay, rinse it real good. Check it on your paper towel. Make sure it's nice and clean. And then look, very little blue. Really little, guys. Really little. Look, very little blue. It's not a scoop. It's just a thin little dip of blue. Add it to your yellow. Mix it up. Get that swirl all blended to a green. Again, I could use a scrap paper or my napkin, and I could check it on here and see what it looks like. That looks pretty good. So I'm gonna roll my brush, get all the extra paint out of it, make sure that it's all mixed. There's no swirls of different colors. It's all one color. Roll the brush, get all the paint out of it so it's not thick and a mess when I go to paint with it. And then I'm over here in my green square, and I'm starting with my outline again. If it's streaky, try to cover it as best as you can. You may need 2 layers. It needs to dry before the second layer though. So try to get it as smooth as you can without streaks, but again, you might need to add 2 layers for this to be a finished square of green. Now, if your green looks brown, it's because you accidentally got the orange or red in there. So make sure that you are not touching red or orange by your green. You've left enough space. Look at the space I have here on my tin foil. My 2 are not touching, and my brush was clean to make sure I do not end up with brown. Violet, we're going to need red and blue. My red is lighter than my blue, so I'm going to take my red, scoop, 1, 2, 3 scoops, roll my brush, get all that red out of it so I don't waste it, rinse my brush, rinse real good, really good, so I don't contaminate my other colors. Remember, your brush must be clean and dry as you go to each color. Take your blue, very little, half a scoop, okay, and mix that into your red. Don't let your red touch your green. Keep your violet away. You'll notice that the red is still pretty red, so I need to roll my brush, clean my brush. Let me get that red off the corner there. And then nice and clean, check it. Get some more blue, another scoop of blue, and add it to your red. Red and blue are pretty close in value, so you'll need to be, oh, it's not quite half and half. It's not 3 and 3, 3 red, 3 blue. It's more like 3 red and 2 blue, but I like to introduce it really slowly to make sure that I don't go too far into blue violet. So I'm going to rinse. I'm going to grab some more blue. Again, rinsing and drying my brush between grabbing the paint because I don't want to contaminate my blue. You're looking for that really traditional purple color that you would call purple for violet. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and put that in this last square of our secondary squares. Again, I'm going to try to outline first. There's a lot of paint on my brush, so I pulled down from my outline into the middle. Okay, flip my brush, outline, and then use that paint that's left over in my brush and the square to blend it and thin it out on the surface so I have no streaks, nice and opaque, clean surface. Nice flat paint. No raised areas, no dark areas, no light areas. Everything's as opaque as I can make it, which means flat one color, no white streaks, not see-through. My green is a little bit transparent, which is see-through. So I'm going to put another layer of my green on there since it's too transparent and it's dry now. So you can see that I'm fixing my green. So if you need to fix a color, just let it dry first, then use the new color over the top of it, and it'll be perfect. But you need to let it dry first. You can't put it over the wet paint. So let it dry, then fix your color. Okay? Okay, so our next color is red orange. Red orange. Now I have a puddle of orange here, don't I? You see how I have a puddle of orange? I need to make red orange and yellow orange. So I'm going to use half of it for red orange and half of it for yellow orange. So I'm going to rinse my brush. I'm going to take some red and I'm going to mix over here in one section some red into my orange. So I have a red orange that I can put on the surface of my square. Okay, so I just use a portion of my orange. So I can use this other half of my orange for my yellow orange. So I don't have to remake orange to start with. I already have it. Now the red orange over here, when it's dry, you can see my example on the left here. When it's dry, it looks like red orange. When I paint it right now, you'll notice the wet red orange looks like red. Don't be fooled. It is red orange. It's just wet, so it looks red. But it should look like red orange, not red. So make sure that you have adjusted the color correctly. Now let's add yellow to the other side of that orange to get a yellow orange. Let's add some yellow to this orange to get a yellow orange. Again, if any of these colors are not right when they dry, you can fix them. Just let them dry. Okay, and then paint in your yellow orange next to your red orange. So I have my existing green here. I'm going to do the same thing where I take my yellow. Oh, this is the wrong brush. Why do I have this brush in my hand? I'm going to take my yellow and I'm going to mix it over here in this corner. See where I'm at? So I've got my green, and over in the corner, I'm just going to mix just a speck of yellow or a little dollop of yellow into that green. So I can make it yellow green, and I can use this yellow green that I've made into the square here that's titled yellow green. Make sure it's completely mixed, no swirls, no separation of color, completely solid, one new color of yellow green. And go ahead and paint that yellow green. It looks too yellow still, so I'm going to add just a little bit more green from this puddle and stir it up. There we go. And then I'm gonna, the yellow-green shows lots of streaks, so I gotta play with this a little bit and get it nice and flat and streak-free. Kind of going over it softly with my brush to get it to look nice and smooth and flat and streak-free. Our next one is blue-green. I've got my green here. I'm gonna add some blue to it. So I'm gonna take my little brush here and get a little dollop of blue. I'm over here in just the green, not the yellow green, the regular green. And I'm mixing up my blue green. I'm gonna twirl my brush so I get all that blue out of there, mix it up. And I got myself a nice blue-green little puddle. You see it? It looks black for you probably, but it's blue-green. And I'm gonna go ahead and drop that down into this blue-green. Actually, it's, yeah, maybe I want a little bit more blue. I want it to look really blue-green. So let me grab a little bit more blue so the blue really shows through that green. So if you start and you're like, wait a minute, that still looks pretty green, doesn't look blue-green, do what I did. Just stop for a second, rinse your brush, grab some more blue, mix it in, and then go back. There we go. Go back and cover that up. We really want it to look blue-green. So grab your green, add some blue to it, and really change it to blue-green. Again, the ones with blue sometimes get real streaky, so we might have to do a second layer to make it look nice and smooth and flat and streak-free and opaque, which means not see-through or white peeking through. Nice flat coverage. Okay. If you mess up, you're going to let it dry, and then you're going to paint it with the correct color and fix it once it's dry. And the last two I have are blue violet and red violet, and the same exact routine. I'm going to take my existing violet, and on one side I'm going to make it red violet, and on one side I'm going to make it blue violet. I'm going to start with blue violet by taking blue, and over here on this section of violet, mix it so it becomes really strong blue violet. So I see more blue than I see violet. Okay, so get that really to turn to blue violet. Grab some more blue. Rinse your brush each time you go into a paint container. Your brush needs to be clean and dry as you get paint from each container. Do not go into a paint container with a wet brush or a dirty brush. All right, there we go. I've got my blue violet. I'm going to go ahead and paint my outline with my blue violet. The same thing I've been doing for all the tertiary colors. I use my existing color that I made for my secondary, and I use half of it for one of them and the other half for the other. If I didn't make enough, then I would have had to make the secondary color again and then use it. You want to make sure that you have your blue violet, and again, it looks pretty blue on there, but if you look at my blue example up on top, is definitely not that color blue anymore. It's not this violet over here. So this is my blue violet down here. Okay. Again, on the camera, the reflection's a little bit different than in real life, but you want it to be more blue than violet. My next one is red violet. So again, with my existing violet that I have here, I'm going to take a dollop of red and I'm going to mix it into the violet over here, making sure that I don't touch that green that's over there, because that would really turn this into a nasty color. It would turn it brown. So I'm going to make sure that I do not touch the green and I stay in my little violet section here, and I roll my brush, get all that red out of there, and get myself a nice, pretty red violet. Kind of looks like a burgundy. Really pretty. Go ahead and roll the paint off of your brush and then rinse. And then dry and then paint. So everything that we've been doing the whole time, we just repeat that method. Outline. Here again, nice and smooth. No gaps of white paper showing through. Corners are nice and finished. Paint is smooth, no streaks. All even application. Nice and opaque, which means not see-through. So again, some reminders. If your colors dry and they're not correct, go ahead and remake the color and paint it over the dried square so you have the correct color. Make sure all of your colors are labeled. Make sure that you finish this broken down color wheel of the primary colors, secondary colors, and tertiary colors by today. And then when you're finished, let's talk about cleanup. I know some of you are still working, but I'm going to talk about cleanup as you work, okay? Your tin foil with the colors that are on them like this. You're going to keep this somewhere safe and let it dry. Do not let anybody get into it or let an animal get into it or spill it. Put it somewhere where it can dry flat, nice and safe. Your paper towel that's wet and has paint all over it, go ahead and open it up and hang it somewhere to dry. I can hang it right here over my camera and I can let it dry and I can recycle it because you reuse that. It doesn't need to be thrown away. Recycle your rag or your paper towel. Your paints, you're going to cap the paint again so it's nice and close. Be careful as you push down on the cap that you don't break or bend the container and have your paint go everywhere. So carefully close your paint containers. When you're done closing them, you're going to take that plastic wrap that I gave you and you're going to recover them so that way the air does not get into these containers and dry out your paints over the weekend. So carefully cover them. So again, using that plastic wrap I gave you, if you weren't able to save it, then use plastic wrap or tin foil at your house. Cover them back up and put them back in the Ziploc bag. So again, they do not dry because these paints will dry. As you can see, there is dried crusty paint along the lids because it does dry over time. Put it back in your Ziploc bag. Put it back in your Ziploc bag. Get all the air out. Fold the bag like this. Push all the air out and seal the bag and put this back in your art kit nice and safe. Make sure that the paints are not slanted on their side where they're running out the edges. They're sitting nice and flat and taken care of. Monday, we will go into the color schemes and we will practice our monochromatic, our analogous, and our complementary color sets in our sketchbook as well.